All right, thank you all for being here. So this is going to be much more relaxed. It's a fireside chat. We'll chat for a little bit, and then we'll turn it over to questions for you guys. So would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Leslie Lucy, founder and owner of Orange Tree Christian Preschool, and also founder of Train Up, a nonprofit organization, which is an apprenticeship program for college students who are wanting to become a teacher.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Tolaby. I actually have a little bit of a different background. I lived in a refugee camp when I was young and came to the United States. And because of our education system, I was able to work at NASA when I was 16, started my first company when I was 20. Now I'm working on my 7th company. It's a company called Uhura AI. We invented technology that enables people to learn 3 to 5 times faster than traditional education. So we focused this technology on adult learners to address the fourth industrial revolution and the massive labor transformation that we're undergoing to train adults. Now, we're also playing a little bit in the college and high school space, which we'll talk about in a moment. But for every license that we sell to corporates, like our Fortune 100 clients or to NASA or to government contracts, we give away free licenses to members of underserved communities globally, especially with a gender and diversity lens. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Brian and Leslie. My name is Dr. Dario Sforza. I am the Chief School Administrator, Superintendent. You could use either title if you want, but titles don't create leaders. We know that, so just call me Dario, of a regional high school in northern New Jersey. So it was a nice ride for us out here, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience as we go through the chat. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Okay, back to me. So I'm actually the perfect person to start off because I'm in the area of just the very fundamental starting out of life and learning in preschool. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done at Orange Tree Christian Preschool because we've been able to create a system that's now ready to be integrated into this exciting time in education that allows children to learn without the borders of a confining education system. It takes away all of the box, so to speak, that we've tried to put kids in, and it just allows them to learn in a natural, organic way through hands-on learning and with the ability to identify the areas in the neural pathways of the brain that sets a foundation for all future learning. So I'm really excited to talk more about that. I've got some statistics to share and some stories to tell about how much fun it's been on this 20-year journey of educating preschoolers.
That actually sounds awesome because I feel like the science of learning is something we've kind of gotten away from. And I'd love to hear both of your perspectives since you've both been in education far longer than me. There's this idea that the current education system that we have came about 250 years ago in the Austrian form of education that was designed to train factory workers. And there's a question that I think we've been leading in the technology world, but there's a question around what are the transformations and disruptions that we need in the education space, especially for K through 12, but also for younger folks, to leverage some of the science of learning that you were talking about, and to also have an understanding of the new paradigms of learning, right? Because with the legacy educational establishment, there's this idea of rote memorization, a lot of standing in line, following what the teacher tells you. The bell rings, you go to lunch, the bell rings, you come back. So it's fantastic for training factory workers to go to where they need to be, listen to authority, and then go home. But for our current workforce, we need a little bit of a different set of learnings. We need a different set of skills to be able to learn work collaboratively together and solve problems. So you're a superintendent. You've been in this space for a long time, and you're a doctor. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Thank you, Brian. We just, full disclosure, we just met about 17 seconds ago. So we didn't even plan that question.
At least 19 seconds.
But a couple of things about me. First generation child, the system wasn't built for us. But never use it as a barrier, but definitely looking back on it now, those adversities that and obstacles that I had to overcome. Your kryptonite eventually becomes your superpower. And then I guess, that's why it propelled me to go further and further into my career, to be able to be that role model for the individuals and students we needed when we were young. But the system wasn't built for us, and it wasn't built for us because it was built on an industrial level model 100, 250 years ago. 100-year education, same education that we're using in the system as we speak today. So how can we join together as leaders and leverage some of the tools that we have today to disrupt the system? What are some traditional methods that we could introduce to disrupt the system, and how is this based on actual empirical evidence? So I do have a DR in front of my name. I never planned to have it, but because the system wasn't built for me, believe it or not, the reason I went into getting my doctorate is because I needed to add some credibility. I think I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't think I needed a doctorate, but I did learn a thing or two along the way. It was a little fun, and I said, if I'm going to do some research, it's going to be meaningful. I'm not going to do some, study that everybody else is replicating just to get the DR. And the study that I did was exactly that. I wanted to be the first ever to assess the creativity of education. How the heck do you do that, right? So I got down to assessing what creativity is through cognitive complexity. Long story short, I got down to assessing the creativity of education by assessing the creativity and critical thinking, cognitive complexity of something that we love to do, which is standards in education. I'll talk a little bit about how we've implemented strategies to combat that, but I'll just leave it with this. The results were extremely, extremely frustrating, both for educators, but impressive on things that we already knew. There was 0% of the study that found that mathematics in United States education allowed students to reach higher levels of thinking, which includes creativity, critical thinking, strategizing, adaptability. We're on this stage, we're in this conference teaching people how to lead beyond the norm. What's going on with students? Why are they disengaged? Okay, I went to English language arts. Only 30 to 40% of the study allowed teachers to be able to teach at a higher level of learning. Now remember, the standards in education, which I disagree with, are the critical foundation in order for teachers to be able to teach. So I went to that accountability level, and what we found was that our curriculum, which is called the intended curriculum of education, is so low level that we are producing not only factory workers in an industrial revolution economy in an information age today, but it's been like that. It's embedded in there. And then we're teaching teachers to teach like that, and so on. When we get that workforce as businesses or as employers, we're scratching our heads saying, what's going on here? So that set the foundation for what I'll talk about next, and how I implemented some of the changes in my business and in my organization to be able to get students engaged and be able to get them graduating with the skills. A lot of people call them soft skills. I call them real world skills or life skills or essential skills that's needed today. So that's a little bit about my background, and looking forward to chatting more about it.
That's awesome. I just feel so privileged to be up on the stage with you guys, because as we're sitting here on day 3 of the conference, and so many just amazing educators who are all coming together for the benefit of educating the next generation. And I can see that this is something that is a movement that we're on. This isn't something that we have to advocate for change. It's here, we're on it, and I just feel honored to be a part of the conversation at all. And as a person who is working towards the first stages of education with preschoolers, ages 2 to 6 is really my area of expertise. What I'm also seeing, and I'll just kind of make note, is that we have the parents of those students right now who are really wanting to find a better way. And there's so much information. It's information overload. And for these poor young parents of preschoolers, they just do not really have any one clear path to take. And so I'm happy to be the voice of reason and just say that it's not that complicated. Preschool education is essential. It's so important, but I think that some parents get so overburdened with the responsibility of what am I going to do, and they definitely don't want that industrial education, and so then they go to the opposite end of the scale where they just throw everything out the window and say, let's just let them figure it out. And so it's like one end of the pendulum to the other. And I just like to say that what we need to find is a happy medium. And so with Orange Tree, we have a system that's very foundational that builds neural pathways in the brain in all the areas that the child is going to need for memory recall when they start going to next levels of education. So yes, the kids need time. They need to practice. They need to have opportunities, and they need guidance. And I think if there's anything that I want to say to young parents of preschoolers is don't disengage. Don't think that you're just going to be able to throw your kids out in the wilderness. And I see the word feral all the time on social media. And don't think that you're going to be able to just throw your kids out there and they're going to be equipped for life. You know, it's important to realize that it takes a village. It takes the parent engagement, it takes the educators, and it takes extended family and people who care about these children and coming together to create kind of a system for guiding the kids along their path from different people in different areas of brain development. I like to call it mind, body, spirit, and community. And so if we just get a simple foundation in mind, what do we need? What do they need to know? They need to understand about numbers and letters and colors and shapes. Very fundamental. It's not rocket science. For a physical education for a preschooler, and I call that body, they do need to grow and develop. When you go to the pediatrician at their 2-year-old check, they want to know, did they sit up? Did they crawl? Did they stand and walk? Did they do these milestones? Well, that process continues up through age 6, and it's very predictable. It's not rocket science, but you do have to know what the benchmarks are, and you need to guide them, and if they're having trouble, you need to help them, and you need to practice those skills. The spirit is their soul. That is a real thing. Every person is a soul, a living being. I know I've heard a lot of people calling them little humans. Well, that part of the growth and development needs to be guided, because there's kind of like 2 ways that every child is going to learn the world works, and whatever foundation in their neural pathway for their own character development, whatever they find to be the truth in the first year is going to stick. And that's an important part of their belief system, and it's hard to change that once it's grown. And so we want to make sure that we're guiding them on the path for good character, and then community is kind of like social skills and conflict resolution. And it's that simple. It's not super complicated, and we have a teaching system that is free to share with the world that will hopefully guide educators, early preschool, early childhood educators, and parents and teachers along the path as we enter into this new era of freedom in education. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's up ahead.
That's awesome. And I think it's really funny you talk about the feral children, because I was actually called a feral child. When we came to the United States from the refugee camp, my mom was already here, so I was there with my father and my brother. And my father had gotten injured, so my brother and I were just basically street urchins in this refugee camp. So when we arrived, my uncle's wife, my aunt, called my brother and I the feral children, because we had no conception on how to properly behave in polite company. We were just bouncing off the walls. But, I mean, I know the education system in the United States historically has been an incredible tool to enable people to jump through social classes and to get themselves out of poverty and do really well. I'm a perfect example of that. With that said, I think we have an opportunity right now, given this transformation that artificial intelligence is bringing to the world. It was funny, yesterday I was talking on the CXO panel, and I was talking to all the CXOs, all the executives that were there, and I told them that every single company, corporation in the room is at a turning point. It's either going to go extinct or it's going to thrive. Just like, if you recall, during the transformation from analog to digital, do you remember like Blockbuster and Nokia going out of business? I mean, Blockbuster had 80% market share. And it still went out of business because they did not take into account the changes that were happening in society. Now, we see all that change that happened over the past 30 years, right? As educators, I'm sure you see the students, now that they have cell phones in class, using various tools, and Google and Wikipedia, and now, of course, ChatGPT and XAI. What I'm here to tell you is that we're going to experience more dramatic change over the next 2 years than we've seen over the past 30. Right now, if we look at the trajectory of technology, it's usually a graph that looks like this. We're past the point of inflection and everything is going almost directly upwards. And so the question we must ask is, as we're completely transforming the workforce, this is the biggest labor transformation in human history, where 1 to 2 billion jobs are going to be replaced by 2030. That's 40 to 50% of the global workforce. So how do we not only prepare the workforce, but also prepare the kids as they're going through school so that by the time they graduate, they can contribute to their local communities and the world more generally? So that's what I've been working on for the past 7 years. It's funny, when I was on stage in San Francisco at the Unintended Consequences of Technology conference back in 2018, I tried to warn the world about this, and everyone thought I was insane. And I am a little insane, but they thought I was crazy because they thought, no, this is 30, 40, 50 years away. We don't need to worry about it for a while. It turns out that it's already happening. And so the question I asked is, how do we transform education to make sure that we take into account the changes in technology? So what we did at Ahura AI, and I didn't need to build this company, and I already built a bunch of companies, and I essentially retired for a little while. I came out of retirement to build this. What I realized is that we can take the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and emerging tools in cognitive science to address how people learn. So I went back to first principles thinking. So are you guys, any of you, familiar with the Bloom study from 1982? There you go. Fantastic. So for those of you guys that don't know, this is one of my favorite studies. You probably know this from your work. What they found, I'll give you the short version. They had the control group and the test group. The control group learned just like they would in a typical stand and deliver lecture format, one-size-fits-all approach with a teacher and 30 students, and the test group of students learned one-on-one. What they found when they scored the students at the end of a long period, of course, the students in the control group, you could split them up into 5 quintiles, as we're accustomed to in education, right? The top 20%, the next 20%, and so forth. But what they found with the test group that was taught one-on-one during the entire duration of their training was fascinating. They found that 90% of those students scored in the top 20th percentile when compared with the control group. I'll say that again. 90% of the students that learned one-on-one, when they took the same exact tests, they scored in the top 20th percentile. I don't know what that tells you, but what that tells me is if you take out the bottom 10%, that's 70% delta of students that in traditional schools would not be successful and would not achieve the level of success that would make you think they would impact the world in a meaningful way. When they're taught one-on-one, they do just as well as the top 20th percentile. And so when I found that out, I thought, well, how do we use technology to replicate that one-on-one instruction? And so that's what we've been working on for the past 7 years. We built a deep tech product to enable people to learn in a way that is hyper-personalized to them and their unique needs as they go through the entire education process, regardless of the cognitive load of whatever they're studying or the subject matter. So I can get into some of those details later, but I'd love to pass it on to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Certainly impressive work, and something that I can continue to capitalize on. Both of the conversations that we had with Leslie and with Brian. AI is certainly revolutionizing the way we are going to do business in education, and couple thoughts on that. Education, we know we're saying often operates like a horse and buggy, right? But we're sending spaceships to Mars and building electric cars, and that horse and buggy is moving at that slow rate. So what's going on there, and what can we do? My study was well before AI, but the interesting about it is now it could be used to capitalize on why certain artificial parts of education could be beneficial. My wife used an excellent example. Artificial intelligence is like makeup. You put it on to enhance your features, but you don't abuse it or don't put too much on because then it could take away some of your features. And I love that simple analogy. I love the simple. You can compare it to so many different aspects, but it's the same with students. Leslie talked about the preschool level, the foundational level, and students' soul. I love that concept. Now, I'm going to use it in a second. Again, did my research before AI, also did my research before I had 3 children. Fatherhood changed me tremendously with respect to being an educational leader. I have 3 children. My oldest daughter wears her heart on her sleeve. You could see her heart when she smiles in her eyes. My second daughter will break your heart, and my son will rip your heart out of your chest. So 3 different personalities, all between the ages of 4 and 9, 3 different learning styles. Certainly pet peeve of mine when they come home and they tell me how great they're doing on their math test. Pet peeve of mine because I know the industrial level math that they're learning, and it's just this reward system. Look, Daddy, I got a 3. Look, Daddy, I got a 3. Look, Daddy, I got a 3. There's not many of us in the industry that could disrupt it. And what's happening is we are getting kamikaze policies. Do you know what that is? I just made that term up about 20 minutes ago. A kamikaze policy is bureaucrats and legislators that are legislating education and forcing statutory requirements on us as public school educators, saying that we have to do this type of accountability when they've never been in the field or never built a company or never started a preschool. And what that does is it breaks the soul of that preschooler, right? So that preschooler goes into school with so much energy, so enthusiastic, so happy. By the way, if you want to know how we're doing on stage, get a 3-4-year-old in the audience. They'll tell you the truth. And when they get to kindergarten, and it's already happening in kindergarten, we start to standardize them, and we start to categorize them, and we start to label them, and we start to tell them that this is what they're good at, this is what they're not good at, and parents, this is where you have to fill the gap. And yes, AI is going to come in and help close what's called a opportunity gap. It's not these aren't necessarily, these are social gaps, of course, but we're talking about opportunity gaps. My kids, education changed my life, and I'm on a mission to be able to do that one child at a time for everybody else. And they're going to be a little bit more fortunate than I was when I was a kid. That's just the way it goes. But I work in a very diverse environment, and I see the homes that some of these children come from, and I'm going to lean on AI to be able to close that gap. But what if we change the system at the lower level? What if we say, hey, let's build on those souls. Let's not standardize them so much. Let's break down those barriers. Let's get bureaucrats out of education. We know what's best for education. Let's bring education back to the local environment where localized education creates and cultivates creativity and critical thinking. And I dubbed the term years ago on what innovation is. All innovation is creativity and critical thinking having fun. That's innovation. But we stopped at the kindergarten level. Right? Now we're going to try to make it artificial. No. We can enhance the features, but she's going to look beautiful without makeup. You know that, right? But every once in a while, we need to bring it in as a co-pilot, not an autopilot. In our business, after I conducted some of that research, we went ahead, and I give you a little tip here. It's called a curriculum audit. You can be a pro. Go into any school system, be a consultant if you want, make some extra cash for your family, and conduct a curriculum audit. And all it is look at all the exploratory, specialized, basic, and enriched courses within that school. And what you're going to see in most public school traditional systems is a dearth of exploratory, enriched, and specialized courses. The courses that build on students' innovative capacities because they're so focused to teach to the test in this one-size-fits-all conveyor belt of education that we still have here today. It takes a lot of bold moves, courageous and bold leadership, sustainable, retentive individuals that are willing to stay and see the vision through, individuals that are willing to stand up to bureaucrats. And another term I dubbed during this conference is being able to outsmart average. And what that means is you have a lot of people that are just status quo, and why change the system? It probably will take a lot longer to change the system, so you have to outsmart them. You have to use and enhance your education system by incorporating some AI tools, and I have some suggestions for that I think I could share a little bit later on. So,
Well, I feel like that's you just said it all. That's it. That's in a nutshell. I think we're done.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, so I was going to say, I agree with like 90% of what you say. On the AI side, I respectfully disagree. I think we're going into an environment where we can truly create the Vulcan Training Academy for any of you guys that ever watched Star Trek. And so I'll share with you how we do it. It's funny, I was hanging out with Rod Roddenberry, so the son of the person that created Star Trek. He's like, you did create the Vulcan Training Academy. I'm like, yes. Can you say that like publicly? So we're working on that piece. But so what we figured out is right now, if you look at any of the tools that your kids are using or adults use, everything is focused on capturing attention. It's called the attention economy, right? So you have these companies like Google and Facebook and TikTok that have invested tens of billions of dollars, hired armies of psychiatrists, psychologists, and NLP professionals to figure out how to hijack your dopamine feedback loops so that as you're sitting in front of your app or your cell phone, going through Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, you're getting that dopamine. It's more addictive than heroin. And somehow we allow children to have access to this incredibly addictive substance. And so what happens, it's actually kind of funny, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, just yelled at a bunch of his employees because he found out that a bunch of them, while they're on Zoom calls, are on their cell phones swiping through Facebook or Instagram or what have you. He's like, what the heck are you doing? When I'm on a Zoom call with you, you have 100% of my attention. How dare you be in a meeting where other people are giving you their attention and you're sitting there distracted? I mean, think about it, right? If I was talking to you guys right now, and or let's say we were just in a regular conversation one-on-one, and the whole time I was on my phone swiping, I wouldn't hear a thing you said, right? I wouldn't understand anything you're trying to teach me. Now, one of the challenges we have with schools, especially what happened during COVID with all these kids in front of Zoom trying to stay focused for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, I mean, that's ridiculous. They weren't put in a position to succeed. And of course, now with, I don't know if kids are allowed to have cell phones in school, I hear a lot of them are. I don't know how you can capture kids' attention when they have something far more interesting in their hand than anything the teacher's trying to convey to them. So the first thing we did with Ahura is focused on that attention piece. So I broke it down into 3 components. And to borrow language from economic theory, there's the leading indicator of learning, there's a coincident indicator of learning, and the lagging indicator of learning. So the leading indicator of learning is attention and focus. The coincident indicator of learning is how you deliver educational content to that individual in real time. Which modalities do you use? And the lagging indicator has to do with retention, because it doesn't matter if you stay up all night and cram for a midterm and go ace that midterm if the next day you've forgotten everything that you just studied, right? Especially in a context of training the population for the jobs of tomorrow. So let's take each of those really quickly. So the leading indicator of learning, what we figured out is if we use a system very similar to that of the social media companies. So we collect a significant amount of data, and we're able to use a system of nudges and notifications and gamification and feedback loops to capture people's attention. But instead of using it to sell gadgets on Instagram, what we do is we give that attention back to the individual. We empower them to be focused for much longer periods of time. When we ran our first test at the Harvard Extension School, and you guys probably are familiar with Harvard Extension School, it's now Harvard proper, it's distance learning through asymmetric learning for adults. What we found is that the average student who would work all day, would come home, have dinner with their families, and then sit in front of a computer for an hour, out of the hour that they would study, they were actually only focused for 7 to 8 minutes. The rest of the time, they were doing anything you would expect. They were on Instagram, Facebook, they were watching the news, they were watching the football game, they were playing with their dogs. They were doing all sorts of things that weren't studying. And I would suspect the kids do the same thing while they're doing their homework or studying for their test. And so when they used our platform, the test group, we were able to increase that to 35 to 42 minutes of focused studying time every hour. And we're, of course, very familiar with context switching costs, right? Every time you're in the middle of something, you're studying something, you're focused. When you get distracted by a notification on your phone or a partner coming in or something that happens in class or the kid next to you interrupting you, you have to start the entire process over. And it takes some time for your brain to kind of rev up and bring all the data points together so that you can learn those higher order thinking ideas. So that's the first piece, which is attention and focus. The second piece, I don't know if you guys remember in the 90s, both of my parents were educators, so I just watched all this, to your point of the legislators or the folks that would just tell teachers, hey, this year we're going to do something completely different. And then the next year comes, oh, we're going to try something completely different. That was complete BS. Well, in the 90s, if you remember, the hypothesis was that we're all either kinesthetic, auditory, or visual learners. You all remember that? And then 10 years later, they're like, oh, just kidding. That was totally bunk. That was debunked completely. That's not true. We all learn through all three modalities, but which one is optimal in that moment depends on things like your diet, how well you slept that night, the last time you worked out, your focus, how interested you are in that, the last fight you had with your significant other or your parent. A number of these variables impact the ideal modality to use in real time. So at Ahura, what we do is we've taken all of the text-based content, which is 90% of the educational content that exists, and we use AI to convert it into audio, video, and gamification. And because we're collecting so much data on the individual as they're learning, we're able to say, hey, in this moment, we're going to switch to an audiobook. In this moment, for you, we're going to switch to a video. Maybe you need a 75-year-old British guy with a posh accent and a tweed jacket explaining this material to you. Or you need a 25-year-old fashion model. Maybe you need Idris Ilba to teach you the quadratic equation. Or maybe you need Taylor Swift to teach you how to code in Python. And so we're able to figure out the ideal way of delivering that content in a way that resonates with that individual much more deeply. So that's the second piece. The third piece is retention. Now with retention, we've had this issue within the traditional educational structure where you learn and maybe you have a couple quizzes, you have a midterm and a final. But we don't really know how much of that material you remember long term. So what we did is we decided to have micro-assessments and quizzes throughout the learning journey. So we quiz people immediately after they learn something, a day later, a week later, a month later, a quarter later, half a year later, and a year later. And so for the first time in history, we're able to graph out exactly how long it takes someone to forget a distinct piece of information that they learned. But much more importantly, after we graph that out, we're able to cross-reference that and say, this discrete piece of information that you forgot in 6 months, you go back to how they learned it. What was the delivery mechanism? What time of day did they learn? What was the cognitive load? What was that person's individual characteristics? How much did they sleep the night before? What was their diet like during that day when they learned that? Did they work out that morning? Did they go outside and get some vitamin D? Did they touch grass? And so when you get that level of granular detail on how a person not only learns but retains that information, you can then figure out how to optimize the delivery mechanism, or even sometimes say, hey, right now, you're not going to learn this. go outside and touch grass for 5 minutes, do some jumping jacks. Or, hey, let's give you a game that increases your confidence. Isn't really going to teach you anything, but it's going to get you in that learning mindset. And once your confidence level is a little bit higher, we're going to hit you with something that has slightly higher cognitive load. And so there's a lot you can do when there's that level of granularity. That's a beautiful thing. And of course, it's coming with every part of our lives in the corporate ecosystem. And I think education is going to be impacted as well.
Wow, that was a lot. But certainly, you can see the topic here is not only disrupting education, but flipping the script. And that is certainly flipping the script on education. And, you know, let me just clarify. We are working with artificial intelligence in my organization more than most school districts are. But the human connection and the human element is critically important. And to Brian's point, that in listening to the types of the type of education, type of company that he's starting, a couple thoughts come to my mind. One, COVID-19 pandemic completely disrupted the way we learn, completely disrupted the way we adapt. He mentioned Blockbuster. I use that model often. You could also use the yellow cabs didn't want to innovate and thought that some weird man coming to pick you up was going to be completely insane, and Uber took over the industry. Netflix, the same thing when Blockbuster didn't want to innovate themselves, and the list goes on and on with so many different companies. We're at that turning point right now with artificial intelligence, and the way I see it is it will be continue to personalize student learning, close the opportunity gaps, but in no way, shape, or form will it ever replace the human connection. And I'm on video now, I think, saying that. And the reason why I say that, Brian and Leslie, is I lived it. I lived through COVID-19 as a school superintendent and with 3 children at home, and we could have probably certainly used some adaptive technology to help our kids, and that would have helped, and that would have made things a little bit better, a little bit more efficient. But what I saw, what pushed me to open schools 5 days a week without any disruption, against all odds, against emails coming my way saying, you can't do this, you will have blood on your hands, literally, and I'm friends with that guy now. But, you know, bold leadership, being able to have a vision and see past that. A couple other things, leading with courage, conviction, and care. We cared about those students, we cared about their well-being, we wanted them to come back. It disrupted education, allowed us to learn new ways of teaching, and adaptive technologies that are certainly helpful to us. It personalized learning, but what it didn't do was allow for the human connection. I'm working with some folks at Google that reached out to me, and I said, why do you need me? And they said, listen, I said, you guys are some of the smartest guys in the industry. You know what you're doing. I said, I'm just some, I don't know, middle-aged Italian dude from Jersey. But they said, you know, most of the day, our employees have about 5 words that they say to each other. They know how to code, they know how to build an artificially intelligent system that will disrupt education, but they are lacking those social skills, right? I had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Lopez for a few minutes before this, which is Leslie's 86-year-old father. His cognitive functions are fully there because he looks like a fun guy, looks like he loves to dance, and guess what? Most importantly, he's here for his daughter. How awesome is that? That human connection AI can't replicate, right? And I also love surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me and also people that have a lot more wisdom, right? Then we have so much information, especially with artificial intelligence today at our doorstep, but we have the least amount of wisdom. How can AI leverage that to what I'm hearing here, right? If I were to make a partnership between the 3 of us, which who knows what the future holds, I would say, yes, let's go with this. Let's implement an efficient way where students could learn, because guess what? In the aha moment, the eureka moment during my research where I was, you know, there was some bias there. I'm like, yeah, the system is rigged against me, against this, against that. The truth is, yes, the lowest levels of cognitive complexity in our standardized curriculum. By the way, that was the Common Core, which was across America, so it wasn't just New Jersey. New Jersey just repackaged it and called it something else, which was BS, if I could use your terminology. what I found was the personalized perspective of the personalized learning was missing. And if we could create a system that, actually, no, I lost my train of thought there. The creative connection was missing, but in that research, I found that the prerequisite knowledge was essential in order for students to get to the higher level learning. So you can't have somebody come on stage like me saying, you know, let's all paint pictures and sing Kumbaya and everything is, you know, whatever the kid feels in their heart. No, they need the prerequisite knowledge to get to the next level. But if they get to the next level with that prerequisite knowledge, now they need to make that social human connection in order to get creative, in order to get authentic. And that's, you know, something that, you know, if AI can close the gap, wow, if it can learn other modalities and other things that are going on in your life, including, you know, why are these darn casinos so dark? I need some sunlight. You know, then yeah, that is something that I want, because instead of 8 hours of learning the same traditional system, if I can do it in 2 hours and then have the rest of the day for play, right? They play in preschool with the big boys and girls. We call that hands-on learning, real-world skills, experiential learning, internships, something that we instituted 8 years ago. You want to mandate something, mandate an internship for every high school kid across the nation. They don't have to go to school for 4 years of high school. I love the social aspect. They could do 3.5, have the athletic, you know, where you build a tremendous amount of team building, have all the social, but get them out of that building. Let them work with real-world industry-level leaders, so long as they're not those Google individuals that only have 5 words a day to talk about. But maybe they could teach each other something. So there is, I think what we're learning here on Flipping the Script, especially in 2025, is I've implemented all of the electives that you can possibly imagine, career-focused courses. Through that, we were a school, by the way, 11 years ago that nobody paid attention to. 5 years into my tenure, somebody started paying attention before AI, and we went through a $40 million merger because we used the 3 C's: courage, conviction, and care. And a school district looked at us and said, we want to be your partner. We had to go through legal, financial, political hurdles, and we stopped at nothing to do so. You could see that we always go that extra mile, but it showed that we care, and that $40 million merger transformed our school for the next generation through doubling of advanced placement courses, dual enrollment courses, internship courses, athletics, social environments, and setting a stage for a fiscally stable budget for the next 50 to 100 years. And now it's time to leverage AI to say, how can we go one step further? Flipping the script on education and transforming education isn't done overnight. It's not completed overnight. It's an inch. I tell my team, inch by inch until you build that mile. And care. Care. We're in the business of education. Go inch by inch until you build that mile. And if there is a system that could allow us to do it faster, that could cut out the drudgery, I'm using it in my office, right? We don't need that. It's not going to replace teachers, but AI, and a teacher with AI will replace a teacher without AI. And that's one of my...
I completely agree with you, and I don't think AI will completely replace teachers. You need teachers to help with the psychosocial development of their students. 100% agree with that. It's just a matter of bringing it all together. Do you have some final thoughts?
Absolutely, and I want to just recognize both of you for what you're saying and agree with both of you. And I think that to kind of pull it all together, my initial statement about how important it is to lay the foundation and have that balanced learning. Something you said about the 7 minutes of attention. When I'm training my teachers, that's exactly what I tell them. I say to them that you cannot drone on for more than 7 minutes about what you're trying to explain. The kids have to be engaged. You have to teach to all the learning styles. You have to make it fun. You have to pay attention to what the needs are, what the interests are, what their currency is, how to keep them involved, and that's the personal aspect of it. And right now we have a support system for understanding what the kids are, tracking their progress, and I look forward to embellishing on that, implementing AI. It's something that we are absolutely at the forefront of being able to transition out of the old way of doing things, use AI to just make the change that's needed to fill the gap. And I agree with you about the need for personal attention and that human connection. I had the same experience during COVID where we immediately jumped on being on a Zoom call the next day. We had the teachers and the kids are at home looking at the kids through the computer, and they were teaching the lessons, and we also stayed open. So it was you choose whatever you're comfortable with. I had all my teachers present, and slowly but surely the kids are trickling back in every single week because that human connection wasn't there through the monitor. And where we thought, okay, we can do this, it's no problem, we just do what we normally do. But that human connection where we can look in their eyes and we can give a hug or, and have compassion and, just all of the things that people need will never be replaced by AI. And I think that is so important to recognize. And it's not one or the other. It's just a continuing of growing and transitioning and adjusting to meeting the needs, and I think using AI to support the teachers and the system and developing it and making those changes as we learn how to enhance how to teach the kids and make it for the betterment of all. I think we're all on the right track, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
Beautifully said. Any final thoughts, or should we take a question?
Yeah, we have a few minutes to take some questions from the audience. I believe there's a fourth mic somewhere. If not, we'll just...
Kelly's got it.
Who was first?
Thank you, guys. Good morning, panel. Appreciate the talk. My quick question had to do with you mentioned attention span of the children and youth today, which I agree with. But with adding AI and all the technology that we have at our disposal, I'm wondering if you guys could give some examples of how that would work without distracting the kids in and of itself. Like, you're right. I think it was you who mentioned during the pandemic, you noticed with your kids and just in general, always being on their phone, on the tablet and all that, and that's like without AI. So when this comes in now and we have all, the additional stuff that we have, isn't that going to be more of a distraction? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, so let me ask you this. For all of you guys that have children, and I don't have any, when they play video games, don't they sit there for hours and hours? You call them for dinner, and they're like, no, one more level. Right? Or when they're sitting on Instagram, don't they just sit there for hours and hours? So it's not a question of attention, right? So ADD is a perfect example. I'm ADHD, which means I'm constantly bouncing around to a lot of different things, but when I get hyper-focused on something, I do it for 15 hours straight, right? So we all have that capability. The kids will stay focused on something that interests them. So the question isn't how are they able to pay attention, it's how do we create an educational model that is so interesting to them that they want to stay focused on it for much longer periods of time? Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, so we use this term often, comprehensive education system, right? You hear it, probably everybody that's in education has a high school, comprehensive education high school. It is the most bogus term that you can hear out there today. None of us that I know have a fully, truly comprehensive education system. A comprehensive education system includes a diverse amount of courses, programs, technologies for every single child. We don't do that. What we do is we outsource. So the two of you, since you come from a certain family, and if you fill out this application, you can go to that technical school. The two of you can go to that academy. A few of you have disabilities, you may have to go to a different school. So we don't have that type of school. But to get back to your question, and the goal is to create that, right? How can you create that? Well, you can create that by individualizing and personalizing education and allowing students to be engaged and focused on something that they love or something that they could see themselves doing for the rest of their lives. If AI can enhance that at the high school level, then we've created a workforce of individuals that love what they're doing. And if you love what you're doing, then you can be more impactful and have contribute to society a lot more. But I agree with Brian. I don't think it's going to. I think there are different types of technologies, right? We're not talking about putting a game of, I don't even know what games are out there today, in front of students. We're talking about putting a history lesson in front of students that is enhanced by artificial intelligence so that they can be freed up to read and write and go in the backyard and climb a tree and build a snowman and do the other things that relax their cognitive mind, because all we're doing right now, and the panel is right, is we're filling their frontal cortex with rote memorization. And how many of us have went in, taken a test, and then forgot everything, a few seconds later? We're not building the confidence. If you build the confidence through an AI can do that on a much faster rate, then yeah, go outside and play with your friends, socialize, talk. You want to scroll Instagram a little bit? I'm fine with that as a father, so long as you're learning the foundational elements that are going to allow you to be creative. I think it could certainly enhance, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities that it could bring, especially to my diverse community. Question behind you?
Yes. With the education system, there's been certain things left out of the education system. And I think with AI, if we can introduce them back again, like advanced communication, we can create a RAG database that the artificial intelligence, you can go in there in seconds, pick out the topic, but keep it interesting for the individual to keep their attention. One thing not being taught in the schools is proper financial, to know how to deal with finances. That's something they don't learn. There's a lot of important things that they're not learning in school, and when they come out of school, they got to try and figure it out, and that's why they stay broke. I believe when you introduce personal development into the program, there's a lot of different areas to personal development, but the thing is, I think it'll keep them intrigued, it'll be more interesting for them, and they'll develop better and be able to do a lot more. And people with a positive mindset accomplish more than people with a negative mindset. We're busy with my company. It's one of the things that I'm busy developing. I'm setting up a RAG database, taking a whole library of books, putting them into the database. If you go into a library now, pick out a book, time you find what you're looking for, you're spending a bunch of time. Here you put it in that RAG database, seconds later you got your information. And I think it can definitely contribute to for better education all the way around.
Amen to that. And that's why lifelong learning is so important. I believe we're out of time, so thank you all for being such an incredible audience. If you have other questions, I'm sure we'll all be around, and I'm looking forward to getting to know both of you guys even better as well. So thank you all.
Thank you very
much,
Appreciate
all.
your time.